Hi, it's Michelle from 12 by 12 Cardstock Shop, and today we're going to be making this double page spread beach day layout. So this layout is full of some of the specialty papers from 12 by 12 Cardstock Shop, and I've combined all of them onto this special layout so you can kind of see some of these fun little papers, learn some techniques. We're going to be making this little tide pool shadow box photo, and then this cool sunburst effect on the top of the scrapbook page. So lots of fun papers and techniques all on a double page spread. Now I'm including the SVG files for this. If you have a Cricut or Silhouette machine, you'll be able to just cut out the pieces that you need. If you do not have a machine that can cut SVGs, I'm also including a PDF download that you can print and then trace the different designs. Or honestly, you could just use what you had. You can freehand some clouds. Maybe you have a wave die. You can freehand a tree. You can just kind of come up with whatever you have in your stash. Maybe you can use stickers for the title. You can follow this basic design, learn some of the techniques, and just make it with what you have. So let's go ahead and get started making this fun project. Now that I've got all my pieces cut out, we are ready to start assembling, and we are going to work on putting the pages together one at a time. So let's start with the first page. This is page 1. And I always recommend that you lay all your pieces out before you glue anything down. I think it just helps to kind of have an idea of where everything's going to go. Make sure you understand the layers and anything, just make sure you understand how it all goes together before it's too late. Once it's glued, it's a little too late to make changes. So the first thing we're going to do is work on this sunrise at the top of the page. Now, there's a couple things. You obviously don't want it to go over the top of the page. And then these bottom two pieces, they lay straight across like that. And then the sun, the little half sunshine goes in the middle. So I'm just going to pay attention that I've got about the same distance on either side. And then that these are flat on the bottom, completely horizontal. And then I'm just going to work my way around the sunshine. And to get it positioned right, I just am paying attention that this center little half sunrise, that the distance is about the same all the way around here. So we're just going to kind of work our way around. Lining those up. And you'll notice when it's done correctly, there's not, like you would think maybe there would be two pieces going either direction out, and then that you might have one that goes completely vertical, but that's not the case. It actually, I'm not describing that good, but there's not a piece that's centered. It's like either to either side of the center. So you'll know you have it right if it looks like that. Okay, so I'm just gonna kind of carefully position everything here. What's the saying? Measure twice, cut once. I'm gonna lay them out till I'm happy with them before I glue anything down. I'm going to start by gluing these bottom ones down. Now I am using Barely Arts Precision Glue. I really love this glue because of the fine tip applicator. You can see it against the white there. It's like almost the size of a pin. So it doesn't really matter on this part of the project, but when we get to some of the smaller, tiny details, it really is awesome because you can squeeze little glue dots into fine, tiny cuts. Now this paper that we're working with right now, the little dotted paper, is Basil Dotted Swiss. And this comes already embossed. So this cute little dot Swiss pattern is part of the paper already. It comes in lots of different colors. So if you don't have an embossing system, this is a great option. And I'm just going to go side to side. I should glue my sunshine down next. keeps slipping on me and getting me confused. And so I'm just going to kind of work side to side, and that allows me, when I get to the center, I'll be able to position those so that they're equally spaced. This is one of the reasons I love to use liquid glue, is because you have a minute to adjust things before it sets firmly down. Because I tend to like to shift things a little, especially when you're making dimensionals and it takes you a minute to kind of center things up. I like to have that time to do so. All right, so we've got our sunset down here. And now next thing let's get the waves on. Let me shift this so you can see the bottom of the page. So there's 3 layers of waves, and we're gonna put the photos right here. So that will cover up the bottom of these waves. So this first piece goes flush against the bottom. Now, isn't this cool paper? This is called Mary Lava Holographic, and it has this cool like flowing lava pattern when the light hits it. So it's one of my favorite papers. We have tons of specialty papers at 12 by 12 Cardstock Shop. Okay, so I'm just gonna line this first one up flush against the edge of the page. Along the bottom here. And again, it's fine that it doesn't go all the way to the edge because we are going to cover that with the photos. Okay, then this next layer does the same thing. It goes flush against the edge. So I'm going to get my adhesive down on that. And it just again goes kind of flush against the bottom. And now this decorative wave, this doesn't start until it's not flush against the edge. It starts on this first wave, and it's kind of meant to be a decorative version of that. So it just helps kind of tie it in. So this is where you'll see this fine tip glue really comes in handy. I can just easily place little dots of adhesive all along this wave. And it's a pretty tiny cut. So the solid cardstock that I'm using is our Encore textured cardstock. This is our own in-house brand of cardstock, and it is made for cutting with Cricut machines and die cutting. You can cut really tiny details out with it. And you're probably thinking, looking at this wave and thinking, yeah, that's pretty fine and detailed, but let me tell you, it can go way thinner than this. So it's pretty impressive stuff. Again, that's our Encore textured cardstock. It comes in 106 colors. All right, so we've got that adhered down. Again, that just kind of adds a little dimension there. Now we're ready to place our 2 photos. So I've got some gray squares here. Now you can either mount your photos on matting, or you could just add them directly to the page, however you wanted to do that. But yes, it does cover up some of that sun. I kind of like that look because it looks like it's peeking out. The sun is peeking out from behind the photos. So those get layered there. And then we've got some clouds that also just peek out like that. So before I glue this photo down, I want to put my clouds in place. And you can see I just kind of tested that to see how far I needed to tuck them under. Okay, like that. So I'm really thinking that I need to plan a beach vacation so that I can take some photos for this scrapbook layout. See, sometimes you have to do that. You have to make a layout and then just dream big, and then you just have a reason to go make those memories because you have a cute layout that needs some photos. All right, so we've got that done so far. And now we're gonna work on our little beach day title. So there's a couple different parts of this. One is vellum. This is our Encore vellum. We actually have tons of colors of colored vellum. And this is the kind of the shadow layer, so it makes it really easy to line everything up. So we're working, I'm going to move this aside and work just on them. So the title itself has the day in the darker color and then these beach letters in the lighter blue. So I'm going to just start by getting these placed down. Now some of these letters, they're kind of a decorative font and some of them have inside pieces. So I think it'll be most helpful to you to just start with the outside pieces and then we'll go back in and place the inside pieces because then it's easy to tell where they go. And you can use that shadow layer to just help you line everything up. And you do want to be a little bit careful when you're adhering vellum. Just use your glue sparingly because sometimes because the vellum isn't super porous, it can kind of glop out. So be careful while you're gluing. I debated if I should put the inside letters back in on this design because I actually really like this cool kind of technique where the letters are missing inside. So you can decide for yourself whether you want to have inside pieces of your letters or not. If you want to leave them out, I think it looks really cool. But I thought most people might want to have the inside of their letters. So, okay, so now we've got the inside of the A. I'm just going to center that in the space that's left. And then there's two little pieces that are the center of the B as well. Suddenly just got super dark outside. I don't know what's going on. Must be a storm cloud rolling in. All right, you know what? I think those are actually supposed to be switched. All right, so there's definitely one that's bigger that goes on bottom. Okay, so now we have the beach part done. Then I'm just gonna get the day, and the day overlaps the beach just a bit. This big, long, tall D, it overlaps the C, just like that. Whoops, let's get one more bit of glue right there. And you can see how I do my glue. I just do little dots. That way it adheres all the way, but it doesn't glop out. I tend to be a kindergarten gluer, so I've learned how to combat my own gluing issues. Okay, so this gets just mounted right underneath the clouds, kind of overlapping the photos. So I don't have my photos in here yet, so I'm gonna just be careful when I'm gluing. And if you're making this before you have photos, just don't put any glue on the edge of that H so that you can tuck your photo in there. Now you'll notice if you place glue on the back of vellum and then flip it over, it shows right through. So I'm kind of strategically placing my vellum or my glue, even though I'm working on the back of my vellum, I'm making sure that anywhere I glue, there's cardstock on the front that's going to cover that up. So you just want to be kind of strategic about how you do that. Vellum is a tricky thing to glue down. All right. Okay, push that down a little bit. All right, and then we've got two cute little seagulls to add, just flying over the water looking for some free French fries, because that's what seagulls look for. Whoops. And you can see how this is, you know, getting towards the tinier side of cuts. This Encore cardstock just really does a great job on small, tiny, fine details. Okay, that is page 1, and you can see it looks pretty complicated, but it actually came together really quickly. So now let's move on to page 2. Okay, so this page is pretty self-explanatory, but there are a couple of unique items I wanted to point out before we move on to assembling the tree and some of those items. One of the features on this project is this overlay. It's basically like a photo overlay that's kind of supposed to mimic a tide pool. So I didn't have any beach photos, but this is a picture of my son with his giant Hershey Kiss. So the idea here is that you layer this over and then it's kind of like you're peeking into a tide pool. I think it'd be really beautiful of like a picture of one of your children standing on the beach looking out into the distance or something like that. But so you get the idea, that's kind of what it would look like. This is my son who's a senior in high school this year. So sad how quick that happens, but okay, so you get the idea. That's what it'll look like when it's mounted on an actual photo. But I don't think him and his giant Hershey Kiss will go well in this beach layout. So the first thing that I'm gonna do is pop up this first layer. This looks cool because it has dimension. So you wanna use foam in between your different layers. So again, I should say this before I put anything down. You wanna lay this out, kind of dry piece at first, because the vellum layer is supposed to peek through that cardstock layer. So just make sure you know which way it goes. So, I mean, you could get it twisted up and then it wouldn't look quite as cool if it's not lined up right. So make sure you've got it lined up before you place any adhesive down. You should have some of that vellum peeking around the bottom edges. Okay, that being said, now we're gonna work on the back side of the vellum. And I'm just placing some foam little adhesive dots on each corner. Again, this is vellum, but because we're putting the cardstock over the top, it's going to cover up these little corners, so you will not even be able to see them. So that is the first layer. I'm just lining up. If you, with your photo, you want to just line it up exactly on the edges of your photo. Now I'm going to do another layer of foam before I place the cardstock on. And the foam just adds a lot of dimension, which really makes it feel like you're really peeking into like peeking through a window or peeking into another world. So you could do it without foam, but I love the look of the foam. And that just gets lined up as well, like so. All right, so that is what that looks like finished. Now this ends up being added to the bottom here. And here is a little strip for your journaling. And then there's two more photos on this page. One of them is kind of angled out of the journaling strip. And the other is tucked up against the tide pool, like that. So the journaling strip tucks behind that second photo. Now the big element for this side of it is this cool palm tree. And it kind of just overlaps the corner of your photo. There's multiple layers. There's let's actually start assembling this. So there's the lighter green goes behind, and it's the one that has the ruffles along the edges of the leaves. And then there's a darker green piece that goes along the top, and it should line up. I don't think I have that lined up right. Sometimes you just gotta flip it over. Okay, so you can see how the lighter green then lines up along the top. So let's get these glued down first. I'm gonna put some glue on the back here. Again, you just saw what happens if you don't plan it out before you do it. I would have glued that down wrong. And then I would have said, why does this look so weird? Okay, so that's lined up just like that. And then the palm tree, these little coconuts line up. This is an outline of coconuts. These line up with that. So I'm going to put some adhesive on the back of my coconuts. They also kind of look like Mickey Mouse ears, but. And then there's one more layer of coconuts. And this just gives you a little bit of dimension. So you could pop these up with some foam. Just like that. Okay, I'm actually going to go ahead and glue down my photos at this point because I need to know exactly where everything is going to be positioned before I can really move on. Now you saw I just barely put any glue down on that, and that's because I do intend to go back and put an actual photo in here, and I want to be able to peel that up. So it's just a placeholder for now. But otherwise I do use a lot of glue. I used to use, you know, not really care about what glue I used in my scrapbook layouts. In fact, I would like sometimes even use glue sticks when I was first scrapbooking. And then I opened some of my older albums and I was just heartbroken that some of my pages were falling apart. So now I make sure I use good quality glue, and I use a lot of it so that I can make sure all my pieces stay where I want them to stay. All right, last photo. I'll just line that up straight instead of angling it. All right, now my palm tree goes over the top like this. So it does cover up a little bit of the photo on each side, but not bad. Okay, I'm actually going to put glue just on the stem and get it lined up just how I want it, and then I'll go back and add glue to these leaves. I'm going to leave that one alone because, like I said, I may go back and add photos. I'm just going to flip this over, add my glue like that. Perfect. Okay, it's coming along nicely. All right, now I have a piece of, this is actually Mary Sparkle glitter. So this is a no shed glitter paper. It's a really fine glitter. In fact, it almost feels like sandpaper, and it just really looks like sand. So this, in fact, I think this color is called desert sand. So this just gets tucked down here along the base of the layout to kind of give my tree something to grow out of. And then what's a beach scene without seashells? So got a big starfish here. These shells just maybe washed up on the sand. Now this is our cereal pearl rose gold. You can see it has a beautiful pearlescent finish, and it's a very blush pink, so I thought it was just absolutely perfect for seashells. All right, and that is our finished page 2. These are so large it's hard to see the whole thing, but we've got our little tide pool window and our beach scene, our palm tree, and then here is page 1. Together it just makes a beautiful layout for you to document your beach scene. So I hope this was inspiring to you, to show you how you can create beautiful scenes with specialty papers and how fun it is to add some of these unique papers to your scrapbook. It really just up levels it. And you'll notice I didn't ink any of these pieces, but the papers themselves are special enough that it really adds interest without any ink. Thanks for joining me today. Have a great day.